making the case, how you can sort of make the case to a community. What's prompting success? In this report, we look at 4 case studies: Tennessee, Alabama, Richmond, Indiana, and New York City. While success varies, we find some key things. There's almost always some commitment to innovation and continuous improvement. There's no one thing does it anywhere. And those places that try one thing are those places that are just spinning their wheels. There's always from somewhere. Sometimes it's the mayor, sometimes it's the governor, sometimes it's the superintendent. We're going to increase our graduation rate. And then they say we're going to work together to do it. And here's my case for why I'm optimistic and why we can say that's good, but we have to go faster and it's not a pipe dream. There's multiple things that were sort of foundation laid in the past decade that we're just now going to start benefiting from. All these efforts haven't actually led to more kids graduating, but they will. Every state now is using a common graduation rate measure. That means we can actually see who's improving and learn from them and who's not improving and help them. That'll be a big change. And then also all these states now have put in goals that are for both continuous and substantial improvement that they're now held accountable for. The spread of early warning systems. This idea of this underlying thing that's very predictable. We can know half the kids more or less in the middle grades, 75% of the kids by 9th grade. Everyone will be able to now know the schools and the kids. There's enhanced city and state leadership. Many more governors and mayors have gotten in the game. The NGA has worked really hard on this, as have a number of mayors. Yourselves included. National nonprofits and business are focusing on increasing high graduation rates with national reach. A powerful thing United Ways can do, along with others, is really to organize this effort to know and understand the graduation challenge in your community, right? This broad thing gives us a frame, but every community is different, and you need to understand the nuances to be effective. It can be done in collaboration with local universities, and it can just be done by people within nonprofit organizations that have some basic quantitative background. It's not advanced statistics, but it is getting a relationship with the school district to have access to the data. How many kids drop out every year in our community? What's the number? And how far are they from graduation? How many are just a couple credits shy? And how old are they? Because you need to know how many, you need to know how far, and how old. So that's the first thing. Looking at sort of the recovery side, the scale side, and just knowing what the end result of the current effort is. The next one is the cohort early warning indicator study, which is this predictor thing where you're trying to figure out how early and with what indicators can we identify our potential dropouts. You sort of want tiers of indicators. You want one level that says we should at least watch the student and pay more attention. And then another level that says we need to act, because like if you look, you push it to 40 absences, 73% of dropouts, kids who drop out have that characteristic. I mean, 73% of kids that missed 2 months of school in 9th grade dropped out. So you're pretty well knowing if you see a kid that's missed 2 months of school in 9th grade, you better act, because in 3 out of 4 cases, if you don't, it's going to be a bad outcome. The art of this with districts and communities is if you set the bar too high, you get overwhelmed with kids. If you set the bar too low, you're missing kids you could have helped. And so that's why it's often you want to have this one level means watch and do modest things. Next level says we must act. A course grade is really a much more cumulative measure. It captures did you come to school? Did you turn your work in? And did you pass your tests? And so that's a much better indicator of your engagement and attachment and persistence with schooling. So now we have a sense of our outcome, we have a sense of how we can identify kids early. The next question is the distribution of these kids. And this is really critical. And just say, in the 9th grade or the 6th grade, you want to do both, what's the challenge the school faces? Because schools were designed on an underlying theory that essentially 15% of kids need extra help. 15% of kids need acceleration, and 70% are going to show up and do the work, and you just teach a good lesson and you're done. They don't need a counselor, they don't need to see the principal. They come, they do their work. If you teach them well, you've done your job, right? That's behind a counseling ratio of 1 to 500, of 2 assistant principals for 1,200 kids. It's assuming that most kids don't need them, okay? But in a high-need school, if you give a counselor 500 kids, 472 might need them. So one of the key things we have to do as a community is say, are we matching our resources to the need? The next point I want to make, where I really think United Way has a role to play, is we've done that good data, we really understand our community's challenge. Now it's doing what we started to do. What's the needs, asset, and capacity analysis of those schools that are producing a disproportionate number of dropouts? What's its educational challenge? Does it have the assets to meet it? And what's the gap? Pretty simple stuff, but almost never done. Here's the real question. Go back to each of these and say, okay, what's the actual need? How many kids need that targeted attendance intervention? Well, we just saw that we have 200 kids missing a month or more of school. What's your tiers? What's your need? What's your capacity? What's your effectiveness? We'll take a big leap forward, right? And we just need people both advocating for this and expecting it and helping get it done. If you're providing funding, insist that your nonprofits you're funding use a common set of keeping students on track metrics to demonstrate their impact, right? Instead of just saying, like, you do good work, we know you do good work, let's have a common way to see what our collective impact is. So that's one thing, and it gets people all working on it. It also helps them work in the same type of thing with kids, even if they're doing it in different ways. Work to make sure that extended day academic supports, because I know a lot of United Way support after school stuff, are providing supports for students' classwork. Help broker policy reviews. We have positive behavior upfront programs to recognize and encourage good behavior, because what happens in the end is the kids that misbehave are the kids that get attention. And that cycles it down. There's really good evidence-based programs that show you could dramatically reduce suspensions. Why aren't we using them? And the credit and course recovery thing. It can't be watered down. It can't be go to a computer, type a few keys, and get a credit. But it's got to be there and in different avenues. So that all tells me that the crisis is solvable. We know which students don't graduate. We know where to find them, and the necessary interventions. And I almost argue this is like insider trading for the social good, right? If you know what's going to happen tomorrow, you're in actually a position to benefit from it, right? And so we know, in these locales, with these students, that absent intervention, we're going to have a bad outcome. And we know that there's things we can do to work with those schools and these students to have a good outcome. So it really puts us in a way to really have a galvanizing effect. And it is high school and middle schools, but then also sort of paired with district and community-wide supports pre-K to 5. It really is this whole continuum. A, this is important. B, we know where to do the work. C, it's solvable. D, we can go faster. So E, let's roll up our sleeves and get it done.